Welcome to session 5 of CS101, taking a look at Bible translations. We looked at Bible translations in the last video, but this one's going to deal more with a little bit more technical side. And I think it will help you actually choose a translation based on what you're wanting to accomplish. So I'm trying to keep these videos short, as short as possible. So let's get right into it. Why should I care about translations? Well, because they help you understand what God is trying to communicate. Now, the American Bible Society says it's impossible to know how many English translations there are because the number depends on various criteria. Now, I am only looking at English translations, so just know I'm not going to look at any other language. Uh, and even though the American Bible Society said that it's possible to know, they do estimate that there are about 900 different English translations, paraphrases, complete, and some not complete. Well, my goal isn't to list all 900, but only to point out a few that you may find helpful. In fact, if you get serious about studying the Bible, using multiple translations can be helpful and actually encouraged. So I'm going to give you a way to kind of know what type of translation you need. If you break it down and you think about like a line, and a line, and on the one side you've got a literal translation, which means that they take the Greek word and try to translate it into the English word that means the same thing. The other end of the continuum, you have a dynamic translation, which tries to take the thought of the verse or the passage and translate it into the same thought in our contemporary understanding. So, as far as, that's the end. When you think about translations, all the translations fall somewhere within the literal or dynamic. Now, there are pros and cons to both, either way, and so you have to make some choices. On the literal side, even though they try to translate the Greek to the English, sometimes it can get a little bit cumbersome to read. It doesn't always flow as easy, and so contemporary translators try to do their best to make the reading as smooth as possible, but their main focus is translating the Greek word into the English counterpart. Now, on the other side of the continuum, the dynamic translation, they seek to convey the thought the author had. And so in order for translators to do this, they look not only at the words and the grammar of the original language, they try to discern the thought the author was trying to communicate. Then they try to find the best words and grammar and way to communicate that to a contemporary English reader. The advantage of this message is it's getting closer to the thought of the passage. The problem, of course, is there's interpretation going on. Quite frankly, they might get it wrong. There's interpretation and literal translations as well, but the belief is there's not as much. Now, one of the things that both the literal and dynamic translators have tried to do is to create committees to do the translations, and thus trying to get away from just one person's interpretation of a passage. Now, here's a couple of different ways to think about Bible translations, and again, you can see the continuums. And hopefully you can see my mouse pointer. Well, let me try something here. There we go. But on one side you have interlinear, and that's actually Greek and English together. So you actually see the Greek, and the English is like right underneath it. And then you have the New American Standard Bible, which was from a 95. I would say that one's a little choppy as far as reading. The ESV, which is more of a literal translation, it reads better. It reads better. And then you kind of start getting into, it's not really one or the other. They kind of combine, try to get the best of both worlds, so to speak. So the New Revised Standard Version, the Net Bible, the NIV is one that's pretty popular. I'm trying to keep this video short so you can go through and look up some of these. I will point out the NLT, or New Living Translation. I like this translation when I'm reading, just kind of reading in general. For studying the Bible, I would go with the ESV, and then maybe you might want an NIV or an NRSV or one of these in the middle. The Message, MSG, is very contemporary, and if you're looking for maybe a way or a way to get the thought of the author that you haven't encountered before, the Message might be something good to check out. And again, here's another Continuum. Basically the same thing. They have a few other translations on here. I think you probably get the idea of the literal and dynamic translations. My suggestions would be to use both, literal and dynamic, to find ones that you like, ones that read well. If you're doing hardcore study, I would suggest the ESV, the English Standard Version. If you're just reading devotionally, I would suggest the New Living Translation. As you study, one of the things you can do, here's just a little side suggestion. As you start studying the passage, you can start with the ESV, and as you get more familiar, move more to the, I guess should be going this way, more the dynamic side. My hope and my goal for this is that you would read, that you would study the Bible, that you would get directives and guidance. Because when we read the Bible in a environment and a spirit of prayer, it changes our life. And I think that's why you're watching these videos. And so I hope this was helpful. Again, you can go back and pause and look at those continuums. You can go online and check out the different translations. But try to come up with a plan. And I'm sure that as you do, God will truly bless you. And that is my prayer. May you experience God's love and His grace as you seek to follow Him. Blessings.